Goblin launch detected.
Hey gang! Using the promo code MTGMudsta, all caps, will get you 10% off any order over $10 at Flipside Gaming. It'll also get you 10% off any orders of singles at Multizone. And it'll get you 10% off most products at Original Magic Art, with the exceptions of some paintings. If these fine sites don't have what you're looking for, you can also consider using my affiliate link when ordering from TCG Player. And if you'd like to join the generic Goblin Gang to support this channel, there's a link to my Patreon in the description below. Giddy up, because it's time for another Gamebreaker game. We've got some new friends, some new commanders, and a whole lot of fun. First up, you know him, you love him, it's Nick playing Geralf. He keeps an island, a sky diamond, a dreamscape artist, Inkwell Leviathan, Mystifying Maze, Void Winnower, and Artisan of Kozilek. Ben is back at it again with Savra, keeping a forest, a Temple of the False God, Grim Backwoods, Twilight Mire, See the Unwritten, and Life from the Loam. New to the channel is Eric, bringing Korvath and Sylvia partners, and he keeps a Balefire Dragon, Sword of the Anime, Loyal Unicorn, Hero of Bladehold, Clifftop Retreat, Plains, and Mountain. Misha has also brought along her newly made Sevinne deck, keeping Winds of Abandon, Plains, Ash Barrens, Prairie Stream, Mystical Retrieval, Mountain, and Torrential Gearhulk. Nick wins the die roll and starts us off. Nick plays an island and passes. Ben plays a forest, passing. Eric plays a plains and passes. Misha plays a plains as well. Nick plays an Inventor's Fair and casts his Dreamscape Artist. Ben plays a Twilight Mire and casts Life from the Loam with no targets and passes. Eric plays a Clifftop Retreat and casts Sword of the Anime. Misha plays a Prairie Stream and casts Cephalid Vandal. It's at this point that Misha realizes she missequenced her lands, but the table is fine with it since it's only turn 2. Nick plays a Mystifying Maze and activates the Dreamscape Artist. He discards an island and sacrifices one to go and find 2 more for the field. Ben dredges his life back to hand, milling himself for 3. He plays a Grim Backwoods, and then recasts the Loam before passing to Eric. Eric plays a Mountain and brings in Sylvia in his main phase. He gets to search his library for the partner card, not finding Korvath, who's sitting in the command zone, and he gets a free shuffle. Misha puts a shred counter on her Vandal and mills herself for 1 card before drawing. She plays a Mountain for turn and casts Mystic Retrieval to return the spell she just milled. Nick activates the Artist again, this time discarding a Void Winnower and sacrificing another island. Nick goes to find 2 more islands, and they come in untapped, so Nick shortcuts and casts a Thran Dynamo before going to find them. Ben dredges again, milling 3, and he plays Life of the Loam again to return Grasslands, which he plays. Eric plays a Plains and casts Boros Signet. He gears up Sylvia with the Anime Sword and swings his commander at Nick for 6. He gets to find a basic before damage is dealt though, and with nothing else, Eric passes. Misha adds another shred counter to her Vandal, milling 2 cards one after another. She plays a Mountain and passes. Nick counts up his mana and casts an Artisan of Kozilek. With the on-cast trigger, he brings back a Void Winnower, and that's a big yikes. Nick then passes. Ben doesn't dredge this turn, and instead draws. He plays a Temple of the False God as his land for turn, and he cracks the Grasslands to go and find an overgrown tomb, taking 2 to have it come in untapped. Ben then keeps ramping with a Soul Ring, before casting a Ghoulcaller Gisa to rival her brother. Eric draws and plays a Plains. He swings Sylvia at Misha, finding a basic before Misha blocks their Vandal. Eric then plays a Balefire Dragon and passes. At the end of turn, Misha basic land cycles her Ash Barrens to find an island for her hand. Misha plays the island she found and passes to Nick. Nick draws and pretends to think about attacking anyone other than Eric. You're not fooling anyone, Nick. He swings the Artisan at Eric and the Void Winnower at Ben. Ben blocks with Gisa, while Eric sacrifices 2 permanents to the Annihilator trigger and then takes the hit. In Nick's post-combat main phase, he casts Geralf and passes. Ben plays a tap Dakmor Salvage as his land for turn, and then passes to Eric. Eric draws, and like any good Boros deck, heads to combat. He swings Sylvia at Ben, and the Balefire Dragon at Nick. He gets to find a basic with the Sword of the Animus trigger, and then deals 3 to Ben and 6 to Nick with the first strike damage. This has the Balefire Dragon dealing 6 to Nick's creatures. Responding to the first trigger, Nick activates his Artist once more, discarding a card and sacrificing a land to find 2 more islands. Eric's creatures then deal normal damage, doing another 3 to Ben and another 6 to Nick, and the dragon triggers to deal another 6 to Nick's creatures, which wipes them out. Eric then plays a Plains and casts the Loyal Unicorn before passing. Misha pays 3 for a Frantic Search, drawing 2 and discarding 2, and then untapping 3 lands. Misha draws for turn and plays a Flooded Strand. She pays 5 for a Muldrifter, drawing 2 as it enters, and then passes to Nick. Nick counts up some lands and casts Gilded Lotus in his main phase before passing to Ben. Before moving to his own turn, Ben uses the statue half of Status and Statue to kill a Balefire Dragon. Ben dredges his loam again and mills 3, and then taps out in his main phase for Rise of the Dark Realms. Nick immediately pumps the brakes on it with a Rewind, and untaps the lands he used to cast it after countering the spell. With nothing else, Ben passes. Eric plays a Mountain and brings out Korvath in his main phase. He moves to combat, and his Unicorn triggers, giving his creatures Dolmen Gates effect and Vigilance. He swings Sylvia at Ben and Korvath at Misha, and the Unicorn at Nick. Misha blocks their Muldrifter, while Ben and Nick take the hit, and Eric goes to find a basic. At the end of turn, Misha cracks her fetch, taking 1 to find a Sacred Foundry. Misha draws, and passes. Nick gains 1 life from the Inventor's Fair trigger, and hardcasts Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger in his main phase. He gets to exile 2 permanents, and he picks both of Eric's commanders. The Eldrazi then resolves, and Nick passes. Ben gets ready for a potential Ulamog attack, and casts Savra in his main phase. She's a great Rattlesnake card against the Eldrazi right now, and with nothing else, Ben passes. Eric plays a Mountain for turn, and recasts Sylvia again. We then see a Bloodsworn Steward, and he heads to combat. The Unicorn triggers on combat, and Eric swings the Unicorn and Sylvia at Ben. Ben blocks Sylvia with Savra, and pays 4 to activate the Grim Backwoods again before damage. He draws a card as she dies, and also gains 2 life from sacrificing a green creature, and then loses 2 life and forces his opponents to sacrifice a creature because of Savra's black creature trigger. Eric sacrifices the Unicorn, and Ben takes no damage. In Eric's post-combat main phase, he moves the Sword of the Anime back onto Sylvia before passing. At the end of turn, Misha casts Sphinx's Revelation, where X is 3, gaining 3 life and drawing 3 cards. Misha plays a tapped Hollowed Fountain for turn and passes, discarding down to 7. Nick plays an island and recasts Geralf, passing. Ben plays a tapped Jungle Hollow, gaining 1 life as it enters, and he then recasts Savra before passing to Eric. Eric recasts Korvath in his main phase, and heading to combat, swings the team at Ben. Before moving from the Declare Attacker's step, Ben uses Abrupt Decay on Sylvia to take her out. He then takes 9 damage. Eric then passes after moving the Sword of the Anime to Korvath, and Misha pays 6 to Eric's end step to flash in Torrential Gearhulk. She flashes back Swords to Plowshares in her yard, and she exiles Savra, gaining Ben some life. Misha casts Breath of Life in her main phase to bring back her Solemn Simulacrum which she'd milled earlier, and going to find a basic as it enters. While she's searching, Nick also cracks his Fair to go and find an artifact. Misha grabs a Plains while Nick finds an Illusionist Bracers, and with nothing else, she passes. Nick plays a Rogue's Passage for turn, and casts his Bracers. He moves them onto Geralf, and passes to Ben. Ben draws a card, and plays a Swamp for turn. He pays 1 black to cast Reanimate, and targets Kakusho from his graveyard. The dragon enters, and Ben takes 6. Ben then pays 6 for See the Unwritten, and having met the requirement for Ferocious, gets to reveal the top 8 cards and keep 2 creatures. Regrettably, Ben whiffs, hitting no creatures at all. He then casts Life from the Loam, which will actually do something, and returns some lands to his hand, and he passes. Eric draws and heads to combat. He swings his 2 creatures at Nick for potentially 10 damage, but before damage, Nick uses his maze to exile Korvath until end of turn. Eric finds a basic, and Nick then takes the hit from the Bloodsworn. In his second main phase, Eric then moves the sword onto the Bloodsworn and casts Austere Command. He picks artifacts and creatures with a converted mana cost of 4 or greater for the 2 choices. When Nick gains priority, he uses Geralf's ability, which gets a copy added to the stack thanks to the bracers. Everyone mills 3, and Nick exiles 2 creatures for a zombie token with 10 power and toughness. They then resolve the second copy, and this time Nick exiles more of Ben's creatures to make a 12/12 zombie this time. And the Austere Command resolves. There are some on-death triggers, with Ben draining the table for 5 and gaining 15 life, while Misha gets to draw a card from her Solemn Dying. Eric then casts a Hero of Bladehold, and at the end of turn, Misha cycles her Vidalcan Aether Mage to find a wizard, while Eric brings back Korvath. Misha finds and puts to hand a Trinket Mage, and starts her turn. Misha plays a Temple of Epiphany, not bothering to scry as she has plans to cast the Trinket Mage. It comes in, and she goes to find a Soul Ring, putting it to hand, and then casts it. She then uses Fabricate to find more artifacts, and this time grabs a Shuko. She then passes. Nick has some beefy zombie boys out, but is now down some serious mana. He heads to combat, swinging the 12/12 zombie at Eric. Eric blocks it with his Hero Bladehold. In Nick's second main phase, he casts his copy of Muldrifter, drawing 2 as it enters. Ben plays a Woodland Cemetery as his land for turn, and taps a lot of mana to recast Savra. Eric plays a Crimson Honor Guard in his main phase, and Misha needs to double check the card to see what it does. We then see a Backdraft Hellkite joining the party, and Eric heads to combat after asking for life totals. He swings Korvath and the Crimson Honor Guard at Ben. After combat, Eric then passes to Misha. Misha plays a Mountain and checks her graveyard quickly. She casts Sevinne in her main phase before flashing back Mystic Retrieval, gaining a copy of it from Sevinne's trigger, and returns Frantic Search and the Breath to her hand. She then recasts the Breath of Life, bringing back her Solemn again. She goes to find a basic as she passes to Nick. Nick plays an island and heads to combat. He swings the 12/12 at Eric and the 10/10 at Ben. Both gentlemen take the hit, and Nick passes after recasting his commander. Ben plays a High Market and brings up Mikaeus, which is a pretty big combo piece that Ben insists he doesn't abuse. Ben then passes. Eric plays a Scavenger Grounds as a land for turn, and does what Boros does, heading to combat. He swings everything at Nick, and his Backdraft Hellkite triggers, giving all of his spells flashback. He flashes back his Swords to Plowshares, casting it on Mikaeus. Responding to this, Ben uses his Grim Backwoods to sacrifice Savra and draw a card. This has Ben once more gain 2 and then lose 2, and forces opponents to sacrifice a creature. As Ben puts her to the graveyard, she comes back with the Undying trigger, and Mikaeus is then exiled, gaining Ben some life. Nick then takes the hit from the 2 creatures who are still attacking. Eric then casts the Austere Command in his second main phase thanks to the flashback, and chooses creatures that cost 3 or less and artifacts this time. They get wiped, and before passing, he sacrifices the Scavenger Grounds to take out all the graveyards, as he's concerned Misha is going to do some crazy stuff on her turn. Misha draws, unfazed by her lack of graveyard, and casts a Cephalid Illusionist in her main phase. We then see a Shuro hitting the stack, which she tutored for earlier, and she moves to equip it onto the Illusionist. With the ability on the stack, Ben sacrifices Savra to the High Market, gaining 1 life, and forcing his opponents to sacrifice a creature. They then resolve the Illusionist trigger, which has Misha milling herself for 3. She then uses the Equip ability again, and targets the Illusionist. At this point, the table's a little confused, because who would ever equip onto the same creature, but as Misha assures us, it's a legal move. She's very patient with us though, as most people I think are more familiar with the only zero cost equip being lightning greaves, which wouldn't work, so we're kinda confused. She lets us Google it for ourselves, and sure enough, it's a solid line of play. Doing this over and over again, she's then able to mill out her entire library. She then pays 5 for Sevinne's Reclamation, and flashes it back, bringing back her Laboratory Maniac and Thought Vessel. Using her remaining mana, she uses Frantic Search to attempt to draw, and as she can't, wins with the Lab Maniac trigger. Game review time! So, sometimes you get beat down by dragons, and sometimes a cephalid gets weird about his gloves, and he wins the game for someone. I'm sure a lot of people are going to say that as soon as the Shuko was revealed, people should have started gunning for Misha. And Nick did want to, but unfortunately with his 2 big zombies, all that would happen was that they'd get blocked by the Solemn Simulacrum and Sevinne, basically doing nothing. This was probably the best showing for Ben's Savra deck in the entire game. Unfortunately he wasn't able to resolve that Rise of the Dark Realms, but let's face it, people don't usually let that resolve if they can help it. Considering how much I don't like playing Boros, I would actually be very tempted to give Eric's deck a try. It may have been part of the fact that he had the Sword of the Anime so early, since he seemed to be playing almost 2 lands a turn, 1 for turn and 1 from the sword. Either way, he had a ton of mana, got to do a lot of cool stuff, and played a lot of dragons. I dig it. And what I also dig is learning new things about EDH. Until this game, I don't think I've ever come across a game where someone's ever re-equipped the same equipment onto the same creature multiple times in one turn. So thank you Misha for showing us the combo and for being patient with us as we made sure that it was real. Please be sure to tune in every Monday and Thursday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/MTGMudsta. And lastly, you can check me out when I stream at twitch.tv/MTGMudsta. This video is brought to you in support by my patrons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.